Good morning, everybody.
Wow, the enthusiasm is just riveting. All right, today we're going to be talking about direct, inverse, and joint variation. Now, there's three formulas that you need to know. One of them is y equals k times x. All right. By the way, just so you guys remember, k equals a number called the constant of variation. Here. All right. Inverse variation, you're going to write y equals k divided by x. And for joint variation, you're going to have y equals the constant of variation times not just one variable, but times two variables. All right? So, right now, I want you to write down these three equations to help you with direct, inverse, and joint variation. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to write what k is going to equal in each of these circumstances. Now, k, when you're dealing with direct variation, is going to be y divided by x. Your constant of variation will always be y divided by x every single time. The constant of variation for inverse variation is going to be the product of x times y. So whatever x times y is, that will be considered to be your constant of variation. And for joint variation, your k value will equal your y value divided by the product of whatever x times z is. All right. The next three things that I would like you to write down is if you have a lot of different variables that you need to solve. Here's what I want you to do. Write y1 representing one of your y coordinates over x1. These, right here, when you're dealing with direct variation, you're able to set them up as a proportion because they are proportional to each other. All right, so when you guys are working with direct variation, simply set your variables up as a proportion, and then you can cross multiply. So if you wanted to, you could say x1 times y2. x1 times y2 will equal x2 times y1. When you eventually set things up and you use their cross products. Okay? So just remember that. You can set it up as a proportion. Inverse variation you cannot set up as a proportion because it's inverse. But you can set it up like this. x1 times y1 equals x2 times y2. An example of this right here, using numbers so you can see how it works. If I said this was a 3, and this was a 4, and this was a 2, what number would have to go right? That's right. Because these are inversely proportional. These are directly proportional. These are inversely proportional. This is just an example of how that would work. Last but not least, joint variation. You're going to once again set it up as a proportion. So y1 over the product of x1 times z1 equals y2 over the product of x2 times z2. So you have all of these formulas right now written down in your journal for you to be able to use them. So when you start working on the paper, make sure you have all of these listed side by side so you have them easily accessible. All right, now we're going to do some practice problems. All right, go ahead. Say it again. Good morning once again. All right. Right now, what I'd like us to do is we are going to do problem, let's choose 12. We're going to zoom in and look at problem number 12. Put number 12 in your journal. Here we go. Number 12. Number 12, it says jointly. All right? So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a little formula right now. Okay? We're little formula. It says y varies jointly as x, z, and y. So what I want you to do is put y1 over x1 times z1 equals y2 over x2 times z2. Now I'm going to highlight things in two different colors. Alright, I got y is 60, I got x is 3, and z is 4. Changing colors. It says find y when x is 6 and z is 8. So when you guys read this, make sure you organize your information and just simply plug it in to the formula. So right here for y1, I'm going to write a 60. For x1, I'm going to plug in a 3. For z1, I'm going to plug in a 4 and set that equal to y2. So instead of y2, I'm just going to say that's just y. X is a 6 and z is an 8. So all I'm doing right now is just plugging things into this formula right here. Alright, at this point, it's pretty easy. All we're going to do is put 60 over 12, because 3 times 4 is 12, equals y over 48. Yes, now we can cross multiply. When you cross multiply, you get 12 times y, which is 12y, and you have 60 times 48, which I believe is 2,880. And then you just divide both sides by 12. And y equals 240. Alright? So y is equal to 200. So right here, what number would you have to plug in right there? You'd have to plug in a 240, which kind of makes sense. Because look right here. 12 to 48, right? That's 4 times greater, right? So 60 times 4 is also what? So sometimes you don't have to use the calculator. Sometimes you can just look at it logically and go, oh, look. Scale it up by the same number. And that would be your answer to number 12. So that's a joint variation problem. Let's look at direct. Let's look at number 9. We're going out of order here. Let's look at number 9. I know we're crazy. So right now, number 9, it says y varies directly as x. So I'm going to do y1 over x1 equals y2 over x2. So it says y is what number? Y is 8 when x is 2. Find y when x is 6. Well, this is an easy one, huh? We're not even going to do cross multiply. Look, 2 times 1 is 6. 3. So I'm going to times 3. There you go. Times 3. So y equals 24. So that's a pretty easy one. Number 9 is pretty easy. Let's go and do a slightly more difficult one. Let's do number 13. Let's look at number 13. Here we go. It says y varies not directly, not jointly. It varies inversely. So we have to use this formula. x1, y1 equals x2, y2. I know, crazy. So right now I'm going to highlight something. It says y is what? Y is 3. So we plug in 3. When x is 5, we're going to plug in 5. It says find x. We're going to find x when y is a 2.5. So this one we have to do inverse variation. I'm going to plug in a 5 for my x. I'm going to plug in a 3 for my y. It says find x when y is a 2.5. So what do we get when we have the product right here? We get a 15. What is that equal to? 2.5 times your x. So all you have to do is do 15 divided by what? 6. 2.5. Very good. And you get the number 6. So So the number 6 is the number that makes this work. You only have 3 formulas. You just have to choose the correct one to use and plug things in correctly and solve them. It's as simple as that. So what formulas are you going to use once again?
Inverse.
We have direct, inverse, and joint variation, and there are the ways you can set them up. Now, if it asks you for the constant of variation, you have to do this, or this, or this. If it asks you to solve for y, you can use this. Or you can set them up as proportions right here, and then set up as an inverse proportion right here. Good luck. I'm sure you all will be fine.